Handed the serial number, second uncle didn't know how to respond. Second aunt got busy. Folks from their generation had all served, so they knew where to look up an assignment. After she found the official website, second aunt entered the numbers and letters in the serial number. When she was done, she triple-checked her input before hitting enter. Then she gazed at the computer screen waiting for the result. When second uncle saw the result, he questioned his eyesight. He checked the website. It was the right one. It was where they had checked their assignments when they served. This. Second uncle looked at the result, then looked at Feng Zhao. He couldn't manage a complete sentence. Feng Zhao had changed so much in 6 years. He could understand the change in personality. That wasn't uncommon. 6 years was enough to transform someone's personality, but not anyone could swing a preferential military posting with a phone call. Feng Yu joined the scramble to check the search result. The length his jaw dropped revealed how surprised he was. Company perk for Memorial Day, Feng Zhao said. Your company hands these out as perks. It was the first time Feng Yu had heard of such a thing. Even though past events had soured his impression of Feng Zhao, his cousin was now helping him out and he couldn't give him simple, perfunctory attention anymore. He was in an awkward position. He was also curious how Feng Zhao had secured the posting. People usually kept preferential postings for themselves. No one handed them out so casually like Feng Zhao. Second uncle and second aunt were wondering the same thing. Little Zhao, aren't you due to serve too? Why don't you keep the posting for yourself? Second uncle asked in a worried tone. You may not understand the importance of a plum posting, but let me tell you. I still have one for myself. Feng Zhao's comment left second uncle speechless. He paused before saying, with a confused expression, That's great. The hand with which he was carrying his glass was trembling. He wasn't as calm as he seemed. One preferential posting was enough to blow them away. To think Feng Zhao had one more. Little Zhao, second aunt thanks you from the bottom of her heart, second aunt said while looking at Feng Zhao in earnest. What a difference 6 years makes. You're your own man now. And to think that second uncle and I were worried that you would struggle at work. You must be much tougher than we'd thought. But even so, if there's anything you need, second uncle and I will do our best. Of course. Little Zhao, if you need help with anything, don't be a stranger, second uncle added. The huge favor that Feng Zhao had done for them left second uncle and second aunt at a loss. It finally dawned on them that the Feng Zhao of today wasn't the kid they used to know. He was someone in charge. Little Zhao, Feng Yu will take you to your room. If you don't have anything else planned, do spend the night. Second uncle wasn't particularly articulate. After mumbling a few orders, he joined second aunt in the kitchen. They ate takeout or instant food most of the year. There was a dazzling selection of instant food products in the new era. When the couple was busy at work, they would order from the company cafeteria or have takeout or instant food. The kids ate at school. Only when the family reunited on holidays did the couple cook for themselves. Second uncle was in a great mood. First, the issue of Feng Yu's military assignment had been resolved. Second, Feng Zhao had turned out to be quite competent. He was delighted. After all, Feng Zhao was his nephew. As for how Feng Zhao had obtained the 2 preferential postings, if Feng Zhao wouldn't volunteer, they wouldn't press the matter either. As second uncle and second aunt took in Feng Zhao's changes, Feng Yu took Feng Zhao to his room. His father had asked him to vacate his room for Feng Zhao the day before. He would bunk with his younger brother for the time being. Since leaving for university, Feng Yu hadn't spent much time at home. He didn't want to tidy up his room. He only put up appearances with his father breathing down his neck, so his room was still a bit messy. Let me clean up a bit. Feng Yu felt embarrassed. After Feng Zhao took care of his military assignment with 2 text messages, he had put his cousin on a pedestal. Feng Zhao had only brought a small suitcase. Apart from the gifts for his uncle's family, he only brought 2 changes of clothes. He scanned Feng Yu's room. Much of the 20-odd square meter space was cluttered, but his bookshelves were in neat order. Do you mind if I read your books? Feng Zhao asked, pointing at the bookshelves. Feel free. I haven't read them anyway, Feng Yu responded. The shelves were lined with mostly Feng Yu's secondary school textbooks. There were 2 types of secondary textbooks, paperbacks and the electronic versions. Maybe it had something to do with the fact that electronic communications were jammed and telecom equipment occasionally malfunctioned during the end of days, but despite the rapid advancement of technology in the new era, paperbacks were never completely retired. Students used electronic textbooks for the most part. They were convenient, and physical books took up space. By graduation, their paperbacks were often intact. It was the same case with Fang Yu's textbooks. They were arranged on the top shelf as decoration. Fang Zhao pulled out a Secondary 2 math textbook. The Secondary 1 and Secondary 2 textbooks had been thumbed through somewhat, but the books for years 3 and onward were all brand new. When he opened the textbook, he saw the first page inscribed with the large characters, "Fang Zhao is a major idiot." Fang Zhao fell speechless. He flipped some more and discovered scribbles and drawings. Scanning his memory, Fang Zhao realized that, when Feng Yu was a second year, the original owner of his body had just graduated from secondary school. That was also when his relationship with second uncle and family was at its worst. Feng Yu was under his father's tight supervision at the time. One ill-advised remark and he'd be confined to his room reading, so he vented by scribbling in his textbook. When Feng Yu turned his head after tidying up, he noticed Feng Zhao holding his Secondary 2 math textbook and caught a glimpse of the page he had turned to. Images of the insults he had scribbled as a second year came rushing back. He snatched the textbook and shoved it into a drawer. Oh, I was a clueless brat back then. Feng Yu was so embarrassed he wanted to hide under a rock. Just half an hour ago Feng Zhao had secured him a preferential military posting, and now he was staring at an insult directed at him scribbled in Feng Yu's Secondary 2 math textbook. Feng Zhao actually wasn't upset. "Decent drawing," he said. From his point of view, considering what went down between the original owner of his body and the Feng family, Feng Yu wasn't off the mark. But the original owner was no longer around, so Feng Zhao refrained from passing judgment on past events. Feng Yu didn't want to discuss the past and his previous grievances anymore. He pondered briefly and said, "Oh, big brother, are you going to visit great-grandfather and great-grandmother on Memorial Day?" He remembered that Feng Zhao would tag along with their family on their previous visits after his own parents passed. But after quarreling with his second uncle a few times, Feng Zhao had stopped going. He hadn't visited his great-grandparents since. Feng Zhao canvassed his memory and found a bit of relevant information, but not much. He only had vague memories of the great-grandfather and great-grandmother that Feng Yu had mentioned. He only remembered the couple were the most senior members of the Feng family. They lived in a retirement home for former government officials in Yanbi. They should have been in their 150s, even older than Feng Zhao was in his previous life. "Yeah, let's go," Feng Zhao said. "Every time we visit, great-grandfather hands out red packets. You haven't been in 10 years, yeah. If you're on your best behavior, maybe great-grandfather will be impressed and give you all the red packets you were due for the past 10 years. Great-grandfather Feng had retired with merit. Even though he no longer retained his military title, he enjoyed a comfortable retirement package. He didn't have to worry about daily expenses and was entitled to a considerable pension. At the Yanbi retirement home for former officials, elderly residents were starting to get busy. Their daily chores were taken care of. What occupied their time was brainstorming how much cash to stuff in their red packets. "Old Fang, you're skipping your grandkids again," a neighbor yelled from his window. In a room equipped with quasi-antique decor, the spirited old man who sat in his chair leafing through a ledger responded, "Yes. They're so old. Even if I give them red packets, are they thick-skinned enough to accept them? Then it's down to your great-grandkids and great-great-grandkids, then," the voice next door said. "I'm thinking of skipping my great-grandkids as well. A bunch of little brats. None of them have amounted to anything," great-grandfather Feng fumed. The old woman sitting next to him laughed. "What are you laughing about?" "That's exactly what they are," great-grandfather Feng grumbled. Great-grandmother Feng went silent. Even though her old companion complained that none of his great-grandkids amounted to much, he always included every single one of them on his list, including Feng Zhao, who was alive and well but hadn't shown up in 10 years. The old lady's laughter subsided when her thoughts drifted to her grandson and his wife who had died young and the great-grandson they hadn't seen in 10 years. Word was that the great-grandson had been accepted to a decent school and moved to Kin, but he hadn't bothered visiting before leaving for university. Little did Feng Zhao know how much his great-grandparents had intervened and staved off trouble behind the scenes. So be it. If he doesn't show, he doesn't show. Family members easily became distant to each other in the new era. If the two of them weren't receiving such a huge pension, few of their kids and their kids' kids would visit on Memorial Day. Great-grandfather Feng couldn't keep quiet while doing his math. "That kid Feng Yu is due to serve soon, The old lady put down her book, removed her glasses, and responded slowly, "I heard a while back about our third son's kids, not Feng Yu, though." "TSK. Great-grandfather Feng shook his head. He was about to speak again but held back. "Whatever. There's no point. Same routine again. If I like what I see, I'll give them a bit more cash. If not, I'll wing it. Feng Zhao spent the night at his second uncle's home. In the morning, he visited the apartment he'd bought in Yanbi and tidied it up a bit. It was just a place to crash 80-odd square meters, a bedroom and a study. After he was done, he went to the cemetery to pay his respect to the parents of his body's previous owner. In the new era, cemeteries for the masses weren't typical cemeteries. They were run by individual companies. The parents of his body's original owner had died in an explosion. The entire building was reduced to ashes, so the cemetery held not their remains but some of their personal items. The original owner of his body never visited his parents' gravesite in Yanbi. Instead, he would pay his respects remotely by logging into the website of the company that ran the cemetery where his parents were enshrined. You needed to make an appointment in advance to pay your respects in person. You were assigned a waiting area, and the remains of the deceased or their personal items were pulled from central storage. In contrast to the martyrs' cemetery, these centralized corporate cemeteries were more compact. When Feng Zhao arrived, he was told he owed a year in back fees. After paying the overdue bill, Feng Zhao went ahead and paid for 10 years of storage in advance. In the new era, rank-and-file citizens weren't allowed to be buried. Their remains were housed in cemeteries like this one. You chose from the various private cemetery companies according to preference and affordability. Some were backed by the government. Others were completely private. The cemetery where the parents of the original owner of Feng Zhao's body were enshrined was funded by the government. Even though it wasn't something to write home about, it was managed with more discretion. Despite incurring a year's worth of back fees, the Feng parents' storage box hadn't been cleared. All the cemetery company had done was send a reminder via text message. Feng Zhao had not been pestered endlessly. Second uncle wanted the whole family to visit great-grandfather Feng at his retirement home on Memorial Day. He also wanted Feng Zhao to meet other elders in the family, so he kept Feng Zhao for the night. As a result, Feng Zhao had yet to spend a single night in his new apartment in Yanbi. Feng Yu's military assignment had been settled and Feng Zhao was back, so second uncle couldn't stop smiling. This gave Feng Qi, who had almost flunked his exams, some breathing room. But what second uncle and family felt awkward about was the fact they were still guarded in front of Feng Zhao. It wasn't entirely due to the favor Feng Zhao had extended, although that was part of it. Second uncle couldn't quite explain himself. He just followed his gut feeling. Feng Yu also felt that the way Feng Zhao looked at him reminded him of the old man who lived upstairs. Feng Zhao's gaze was somewhat paternalistic, to the extent that Feng Yu felt inferior in front of his cousin. He even spoke with caution. Feng Yu tried to figure out why he acted this way. Maybe it was like his father had said, people who are competent command a sense of respect. Feng Zhao also noticed that second uncle and family were wary of him, but he couldn't change overnight. He didn't know how to act young, or rather, he didn't know how to pretend to be a young man. The reason for his visit was simple: he wanted to see what Yanbi looked like in the new era. It had been 6 years since his last visit. Even if his personality had undergone massive changes, friends and family wouldn't make a big deal of it. On Memorial Day, Feng Zhao, second uncle, and his family took a public train to a retirement home for former officials in the suburbs of Yanbi. It was a bustling day at the retirement home. Rapid advancements in technology and improved human health after the period of destruction had increased life expectancy. The retirement age for most industries was now around 150. At that age, it was common for 5 generations of the same family to be alive. As a result, families were quite large. Some families had 6 or 7 kids. The numbers added up. But in the new era, what counted was personal ability, not the size of your family. Jobs in the new era were demanding, which put a strain on family relationships. Even siblings could easily grow apart. The various branches of great-grandfather Feng's family decided whether or not to visit the head of the family on their own. They never coordinated their visits. When Feng Zhao and second uncle's family arrived at the retirement home, their first stop wasn't great-grandfather and great-grandmother's living quarters but rather the neighboring woods. The 2 elders get many visitors on Memorial Day. If everyone visits at the same time, it's way too crowded in their residence, so the retirement home allocates a small house for the family reunion. Second uncle was worried that Feng Zhao wasn't familiar with the protocol. When Feng Zhao and party arrived, there was already a crowd of 20-odd people. They sat at adjoining tables. The family members on good terms chatted in groups, while relatives at odds with each other ignored their enemies. The 2 elders will also chat with the younger Fangs, but the time they spend with each person varies. The more they like you, the longer they'll spend with you. Last year, they spent a lot of time with a female cousin, and the year before that, it was a male cousin. But I don't know either cousin well. We've never spoken. Feng Yu filled Feng Zhao in on scenes from previous memorial days as he walked. Second uncle's family typically dropped by to pay their respects. They were never the center of attention. I don't see Granddad. Maybe he's come and left. Granddad doesn't like our family. He typically shows up every year with third uncle and third auntie, Feng Yu continued in a whisper. Not only did second uncle struggle to communicate with his nephew's generation, he got into arguments with his own dad easily because they had similar temperaments. Oh, you're here, Feng Lang, said a man sitting at a table beneath a tree. Feng Lang was second uncle's name. The man who noticed second uncle was his cousin. Their fathers were siblings, although they weren't close. They got to know each other better recently after working on a project together. Who's that over there? The man asked, gesturing to Feng Zhao. That's Feng Zhao, my late older brother's only son, second uncle responded. The man pondered briefly before making the connection. Oh, him. He had too many relatives to keep track of. He didn't want to bother with minor characters. Second uncle's cousin was more interested in the box Feng Zhao was carrying than in Feng Zhao himself, but it was their turn to meet great-grandfather and great-grandmother, otherwise he would have cried. Feng Zhao watched second uncle's cousin and his family enter a neighboring house. The houses located in the woods were all rather retro, resembling the homes with tiled roofs from before the apocalypse. This was the only house in the vicinity. It was winter already. Although it had been sunny the past 2 days, temperatures were quite low. The two elders were holed up inside. Why don't you take a seat? My cousin's family will be at least half an hour, second uncle said. Feng Zhao was about to sit down when he heard someone inside the house yell his name. Feng Zhao. Hey, Feng Zhao. Yes, you. Hurry up. Your great-grandfather and great-grandmother want to see you. It was second uncle's cousin. He must have mentioned Feng Zhao to the two elders, so they let him cut in line. Oh, they didn't ask for you, Feng Lang, you and your family wait here. Second uncle's cousin gestured at him to stay put, letting only Feng Zhao through. Little Zhao, you be careful. Second uncle was worried. He himself was super nervous every time he met with the two elders. They projected a dominating aura. He was worried Feng Zhao was too young and would cave under the pressure. Feng Zhao picked up the gift he had prepared for his great-grandparents and walked in confidently. The house was quite warm. About a dozen people were sitting in the living room. They spoke in whispers. They whispered to each other when they noticed Feng Zhao entering. Their gaze also landed on the box Feng Zhao was carrying, as if gauging its contents. In here. Second uncle's cousin pointed to a room. I'll take you. Second uncle's cousin led Feng Zhao into the room and left. But when he left, he made a sly move. He didn't shut the door completely, leaving a small gap, so he could eavesdrop from the living room. Inside the room, Feng Zhao saw the two gray-haired elders sitting inside. The old lady looked friendly, wearing a gentle smile. She gauged Feng Zhao as if comparing his stature now to the small child from 10 years ago. However, the old man sitting next to her was in a foul mood. His gaze was hawk-like and he projected an intimidating aura. An untested young man would have felt nervous. You two look like you're in good spirits, Feng Zhao said with a laugh. He placed the box he'd brought onto the table and opened it to remove its contents. Great-grandfather Feng was going to throw a tantrum. The kid hadn't shown up in 10 years, after all. He needed a dressing down. But when he saw what Feng Zhao removed from the box, he couldn't maintain his composure. The serious. Great-grandfather Feng exclaimed. What Feng Zhao removed was a Sci-Leveler gray spaceship model about 30 centimeters long. It was emblazoned with a logo and lettering. The Sirius was a battleship built by mankind for space exploration during the New Era. One of the pioneering spaceships, the Sirius, had already been retired. But even though it was retired, it was still a popular design among model manufacturers, not because of its historical significance but for its economic value. And the reason Feng Zhao had picked the Sirius was that great-grandfather Feng and great-grandmother Feng had served on the spaceship. When Feng Zhao handed over the model, great-grandfather Feng played cool and didn't lift a finger. It was the old lady who accepted it. She was stunned the moment she felt the model. This material. She also examined the detail before looking at Feng Zhao and saying, "How thoughtful of you." Their children and other grandkids had bought them models of the Sirius before, but great-grandfather Feng had tossed all of them. His descendants were under the impression that they didn't like models, but the fact was that those models were poorly made and got many details wrong. Only model makers who understood the history of the spaceship would notice the finer features. But the model Feng Zhao presented got all the small details right and was made with the exact same material as the real spaceship. The model had to have cost a fortune. Great-grandfather Feng's mood improved somewhat. At least Feng Zhao had put some thought into the gift. He and his wife loved it. Now that Feng Zhao had extended an olive branch, great-grandfather Feng stopped pouting. It's been 10 years since we last saw you. Looks like you're doing well. Where are you working? Great-grandfather Feng asked. An entertainment company. Feng Zhao sat down on a chair next to the elderly couple. Oh, the entertainment business. Great-grandfather Feng was intrigued. Another thought struck him and he asked, where did you complete your military service? I haven't yet. I've been too busy. My schedule for this year is full, Feng Zhao responded. Oh, you haven't served yet. Great-grandfather Feng straightened his back. You're that busy. What are you busy with? Gaming. Fell stunned, great-grandfather Feng withdrew the hand with which he was about to offer a red packet. Hearing Feng Zhao's reply, those eavesdropping in the living room nearly broke out laughing. They all knew that great-grandfather Feng hated hearing the younger generation mention gaming. Occasional gaming was fine, but addiction to gaming, that was a total waste of life. Great-grandfather Feng felt a little depressed. On account of the fact that this youngster had finally came to visit them after all these years, he had intended to give Feng Zhao the 10 years' worth of red packets that he had missed out on, but after hearing his reply, he no longer felt in the mood to do so. Seeing the eyebrows of her husband rising, great-grandmother Feng patted his back then looked toward Feng Zhao. She was not at all angry. Instead, she amiably told Feng Zhao, we feel relieved that you are doing well. Starting work shortly after graduating is not always smooth sailing. Did you encounter any difficulties? Yes. I am not too familiar with military service. Could you tell me about both your experiences serving on board the Sirius all those years back? Feng Zhao asked. Great-grandmother Feng had thought Feng Zhao was going to take this opportunity to seek their help. Amongst all their descendants, many who rarely came to visit in ordinary times would come running over seeking assistance and help when they encountered a problem they could not resolve themselves. Great-grandmother Feng had seen too many of such descendants, so when Feng Zhao said yes, her heart felt a little disappointed, but Feng Zhao's following words surprised her. Experiences aboard the Sirius. The old lady scrutinized her great-grandson sitting before her, wondering if Feng Zhao really wanted to know about the two elders' experiences or if he was going to use this topic to ask for help regarding military postings. When we were on the topic of military service, second uncle had mentioned that the two of you served on board the Sirius, and I was a little curious. Feng Zhao looked straight into the eyes of great-grandmother Feng, his eyes full of seriousness, and he continued, I'm guessing that the confidentiality period has already passed. Great-grandmother Feng retracted her scrutinizing gaze and thought back to those days. Although it had been a long time ago, when she thought back, her recollections were surprisingly clear and distinct. When the Sirius had been retired from service, all those who had served on board also received some recordings and photographs. After retirement, whenever great-grandmother Feng had nothing to do, she would take out those old videos and photos to browse. Thus, even if she were to choose to forget about it, she could not do so. The existence of videos and photos were to remind people of their past experiences. Even if 100 years had passed because of the existence of videos and photos, memories became way more vivid. On the Sirius all those years ago. You should ask me about this matter. I spent more time on the Sirius than her. Back then, during my days in the military on board the Sirius, I was around your age. Back then. Great-grandmother Feng had only just started when great-grandfather Feng could not bear it any longer and interrupted his wife. He rambled on and on to Feng Zhao about his military experiences on board the Sirius all those years back. The eyebrows that were about to shoot up a while back now flew upward. Outer space was unlike the army or the navy. The unpredictability was much higher, and unexpected crises could occur at any time. That was the reason lots of people would think up any method possible for their children to stay on the planet for their military service. But Feng Zhao was different. His former battlefield had been on land. He had never experienced space travel. Before their military service, many people would gain some experiences from their own parents. What was available online was limited, and it was mostly only government-issued information. There was very little private information, as outer space service personnel were required to sign confidentiality agreements, and even after the expiry of the agreement, what they spoke of was what everyone knew. Only their closest relatives or trustworthy friends would get to hear the truth and their true thoughts. From second uncle, Feng Zhao had heard a little. However, second uncle's military service experience had been more ordinary. On the other hand, his great-grandparents' experiences were full of ups and downs. During their military service days, they'd received meritorious service awards, and when the service was completed, they had decided to stay with the military. Great-grandfather had served and achieved regimental rank before he was unable to climb any higher. At that time, he was getting old and regrettably had to transfer to civilian work, working in Yanbi City's governmental office till he retired. However, for great-grandfather Fang, his life while working in Yanbi City's government office was no different from his lifestyle after he retired, as he reminisced often. After retirement, he would often take out his collection of military medals and tell his wife about those days. Great-grandfather Fang especially loved talking to people about his military experiences back then. It was a pity that most of his descendants did not like hearing these stories. A few members of the younger generations would be slightly more curious, but once they started listening, their minds would wander, and thus, great-grandfather Fang would not continue. Great-grandfather enthused till his spit splattered all over. Beside him, great-grandmother Fang held on to the model of the Sirius, showing and telling Feng Zhao on which parts of the spacecraft the incidents her husband was explaining happened. Great-grandmother Fang observed Feng Zhao at the same time. She found out that Feng Zhao had not deliberately raised the topic to attract their attention but was actually listening attentively. Great-grandmother Feng felt that this great-grandson was a little odd. Seeing the two elders, he had not felt uncomfortable or been nervous. Hearing his great-grandfather's military experiences, he would continue with a few words of his own, each time emphasizing the important points. This made great-grandfather Feng elated, and he did not stop talking even when his mouth was dry. With this, great-grandmother Feng felt that they were not talking to a great-grandson but rather as if they were chit-chatting with an old friend of a similar age. Feng Zhao filled up the cups beside them with warm water before handing them over to the two elders. Great-grandfather Feng took a sip from the cup and then picked out a few photographs that he had stashed away. Have you ever seen this gun? And this, back then when we were on a foreign planet mining, when we encountered an attack by an organism from that planet. It ate 2 members of our squad, and I used this gun to kill it in the end. Oh. And there is still, a number of photographs were of great-grandfather Fang holding a gun when he was young. Some were solo shots, while others were group photos. However, all those inside, only this gun followed me throughout my career and into retirement. Feng Zhao looked over. It was a black so dark that seemed like it was radiating coldness. Not large, it seemed slightly low profile. Watching Feng Zhao's gaze that was fixed onto the gun, a proud expression appeared on great-grandfather Fang's face. Envious. An average person will not have this gun. He became even more excited and continued, when you become well known throughout Yanzhou, I will give this gun for you to play with. The moment he said this, a slap from great-grandmother Fang landed on the arm of her husband. What nonsense. Could this sort of gun even be given to anyone for them to play with? By violating the law, the gun might be confiscated, and even at their age, punishment was still unavoidable. I am not speaking nonsense. If Feng Zhao really becomes well known all over Yanzhou, what is wrong with giving him a little extra protection? We could also sneakily give. Seeing the room door not fully closed, great-grandfather Fang was jolted awake. Some words could not be revealed casually, even if they thought that way, it still should not be revealed. Cough, what I said was just a joke, teasing the younger generation. Right, little Zhao? Great-grandfather Fang looked at Feng Zhao. Feng Zhao returned a smile. But that smile made great-grandfather Fang shake slightly, as if he felt there was something amiss. Enough of that, let us continue with the story. Where was I just now? In the room, great-grandfather continued and did not look like he would be stopping. Outside, those in the living room were not in very good condition. Never did I expect that little Feng Zhao, who was absent for 10 years, would show up and give such a precise boot-licking, someone mumbled. Another's lips twitched. No one has ever kept great-grandfather and great-grandmother Fang occupied for so long, right? With the momentum he has, he does not appear to be stopping. The people outside grew impatient from the waiting and came over to scout the situation. The one sitting nearest the door said, I never even got the chance to enter before my turn was cut by that little fellow. Now great-grandfather is talking to him enthusiastically and is not willing to see anyone else who comes. Just wait to one side for your turn. Great-grandfather Fang continued for an hour until he had no voice. He never talked this much on normal days, so today, his throat could not take speaking so much. All right, then the two of you, please take a rest. I will make a move. Today I came with second uncle's family to pay a visit to you too. Although you did not bring it up, I know how much effort the two elders have put in. This was what Feng Zhao surmised from his memories. Back then, when the original owner's parents met with that accident where the entire block exploded, the original owner was still a young child. He could not have received all the compensation on his own. That he smoothly managed to get the compensation paid out as well as a compensation lodging was no doubt due to the assistance of someone. Second uncle's family did not have that sort of power. With some thinking, it could only be the two elders. As long as you understand, all is well. Don't play games every day and let it affect proper work. What is your terminal number? Here is a red packet for you, great-grandfather Feng said. After Feng Zhao told him, he received a notification on his bracelet that a gift had been sent to him. Clicking on it, a red envelope appeared. The sum of money displayed on top made Feng Zhao arc his brows. $20,000. According to Feng Yu, the average amounts in red packets that the younger generation received from the Feng great-grandparents was $1,000. The amounts might differ slightly depending on great-grandfather's mood. Given the averages, 10 years' worth of red packets was only $10,000. Now that great-grandfather Feng had given him $20,000, did it mean that he was in a very good mood? Oh, right, for your military service situation, what are your opinions? Great-grandfather Feng asked. Those eavesdropping outside the door were flabbergasted. Amongst them, some had insinuated the subject before for their own families or children, but great-grandfather Feng only had one approach when it came to this. Settle your own problems yourself. This old man does not care. But now. The old man wanted to help Feng Zhao. Were his previous words all bullshit? Inside, Feng Zhao replied, I do have some opinions. Oh. Let's hear it. Great-grandfather Feng had decided to listen to it. I haven't contemplated fully yet. When I'm done thinking, I will consult the two elders. Hey, are you putting on airs? Great-grandfather Feng wanted to be difficult, but it did not work. He was still in a good mood. All right, when you have finished thinking, come tell us about it. We will advise you properly. Feng Zhao stood up and walked toward the door. He did not leave immediately, instead shutting the door tightly so the people outside could not hear the conversation clearly. The words you said just now, do they still count? Feng Zhao asked. Which words? Great-grandfather Feng had slight misgivings. When I'm well known all over Yanzhou, you will give me the gun to play. To protect myself with. Great-grandfather Feng did not take it seriously. It counts. Make yourself well known first. Don't let me wait too long. I'm already so old, and I don't have that long to wait. Feng Zhao laughed. You aren't old, only 150 years old. Feng Zhao opened the door and was preparing to go out when he heard great-grandfather Feng speak once more. Wait, don't you do something stupid like commit a crime. What I mean by well-known isn't the same as being infamous. You think too much. Goodbye, I will come back to visit when I have time. Feng Zhao walked out and closed the door at the same time. In the room, great-grandfather Feng pondered for a bit before telling his wife, hearing what the young fellow said before leaving makes me feel like he is up to something, eh? You are thinking too much, I guess. Great-grandmother Feng glanced at the serious model that was placed on the table, seemingly entranced by it. When Feng Zhao emerged from his great-grandparents' private room, he was greeted with a host of curious stares that scanned him from head to toe. They wanted to know who the hell had commanded the attention of great-grandfather and great-grandmother for more than an hour. He doesn't look that impressive, someone whispered. I've never seen him before. Never heard of him before. He looks quite plain. What's so special about him that the two elders chatted with him for such a long time? When second uncle saw Feng Zhao emerge, he rushed forward and asked, how come you were in there for so long? Great-grandfather and great-grandmother weren't angry, were they? Second aunt glared at him. Second uncle made it sound like Feng Zhao was bound to upset the two elders. What kind of mood were they in? Second aunt asked. A pretty good mood. They were in good spirits, Feng Zhao responded. You had such a long chat. Seems like great-grandfather has taken a liking to you, Feng Yu said. Feng Zhao smiled but didn't speak. Noticing the probing looks that surrounded them, second aunt dragged Feng Zhao to a corner and whispered, Feng Zhao, did great-grandfather give you a red packet? Yes, he gave me 10 years worth. When she heard the answer, second aunt got a sense of where Feng Zhao stood. She didn't press him for the exact amount. She had just been wondering if her nephew left a good impression. The fact that he remembered Feng Zhao, gave him 10 years worth of red packets, and chatted with him for such a long time meant great-grandfather was in a good mood. The two elders were reminiscing about their military service. That's why it took longer than usual, Feng Zhao said. Feng Zhao didn't raise his voice much, but it was just loud enough for curious bystanders to hear. Once they heard that great-grandfather had been rambling on about this military service, the onlookers exchanged knowing looks. No wonder it had taken so long. Great-grandfather had gone down memory lane again. That explained everything and dashed their curiosity. Great-grandfather didn't have much to say to the relatives that followed Feng Zhao, probably because he had talked too much with Feng Zhao. His wife did all the talking, although she didn't say much either. Seeing a series of younger Fangs who stuttered through their sentences put great-grandfather Fang in a bad mood again. As an elder, he wanted to be generous, but he couldn't fake laughter. All he could do was keep a stern face, which terrified the young ones even more. Great-grandfather Fang signaled his wife to keep her comments brief and send them packing with their gift money. It was all about the red packets, wasn't it? Or they needed a favor from the two elders. Just listening to the requests was painful. The couple were happy to lend a helping hand to younger Fangs who were regular visitors. As for those who never showed and stuck their hands out for red packets and favors, not slapping them in the face was courtesy enough. What else could they expect? Faced with his descendants that fell into the second category, great-grandfather Fang regretted not keeping Feng Zhao longer. Great-grandfather Fang was a bit more inquisitive when granting second uncle and his family their audience. He asked about Fang Yu's upcoming military service. He was surprised to find out the issue had been resolved. Feng Zhao didn't bring up his role in the matter. Second uncle was worried about causing Feng Zhao trouble, so he hadn't told anyone about it, but he still brought it up in passing while meeting with great-grandfather Fang. Feng Zhao took care of it. Who was his connection? Great-grandfather was curious now. Great-grandfather Fang waited until second uncle and his family had left before turning to his wife to ask, "Say, what is that kid Feng Zhao up to? If he can land a preferential posting on his own, why did he ask about our military service? Did he genuinely want some advice? How would I know?" Great-grandmother Fang was surprised too. She had never expected Feng Zhao to wield such influence at a young age. She had underestimated him. I still think the kid is up to something. Great-grandfather Fang started getting suspicious. "If you're still not convinced, just keep an eye on the news," great-grandmother Fang said. By then, second uncle and his family had left the house. They had no idea what great-grandfather and great-grandmother were thinking. They headed straight home after the meeting. During the train ride, Feng Zhao noticed many big screen displays showing news reports about Battle of the Century and the latest trailers. Gamers were bound to be ecstatic this year. It was just the beginning of the year and Battle of the Century had yet to be released, but the buzz had already started simmering. The online poll for the game's virtual idol endorsers for each continent organized by Rising Dragon was about to kick off. It would start in Huangzhou and continue in other continents. Yanzhou would be up soon. Feng Yu was browsing headlines on his bracelet. Various news outlets were speculating who Fiery Bird would pick as the game's public face in Yanzhou. Would it be Tongshan True Entertainment's top idol Miyu? Or Neon Culture's Andy Leo? Or Sci-Leveler Wing's Polar Light, the bombshell that debuted at the end of last year? Say, Big Brother Zhao, who do you think will win the endorsement deal? Feng Yu asked. I don't know. That's Fiery Bird's decision, Feng Zhao responded. Speaking of Polar Light, Big Brother Zhao, is this you? Feng Yu showed Feng Yu a screen capture. It was a screen capture combining the credits at the end of the 3 music videos from the 100-year Period of Destruction series. The name of the producer had been circled. Feng Zhao glanced at the image and nodded. Yes, that's me. Feng Yu took a deep breath. Big Brother Zhao. What? Big Brother Zhao, think you could get me a signed photo of Macchiato? Feng Yu was in his face. Feng Zhao knew about Macchiato. She was one of Sci-Leveler Wing's top actresses. She had a sweet face, although Feng Zhao had never worked with her and didn't know how the film department operated. I'll look into it. If I can get one, I'll send it over, Feng Zhao said. I want one too. I want one too. Feng Qi wanted a piece of the action as well. Big Brother Zhao. Big Brother Zhao, I want Vicky's signed photo. You gotta hold on to it if you can swing one. Vicky was another actress signed to Sci-Leveler Wing. She was a great star. Feng Zhao would have never thought a young kid like Feng Qi would be a Vicky fan. No problem. I'll hang on to them if I get them. Feng Zhao then smiled at Feng Ling. Little Bell, are you a fan of any celebrities? If they're signed to Sci-Leveler Wing, I'll try to get a signed photo for you. Feng Ling pondered the question briefly and shook her head. Then she took out a card she'd gotten from a young female staffer at the retirement home. Upon inserting it into a card reader, it displayed an animation of song and poetry. It was an early education product. Fang Ling handed the card to Fang Zhao. Fang Zhao was confused. This is for me. Fang Ling blinked her eyes and said, Big brother Zhao, will you sign it for me? Fang Zhao froze, then said with a laugh, I don't have a pen. I'll sign it for you when we get home. When they got home, Little Belle brought out some 20 similar cards she had collected and had Fang Zhao sign all of them. She was still young and didn't have an idol, but she had heard someone say that if you meet your idol, you should get his or her signature. In Little Belle's eyes, Fang Zhao, who had bought her tons of candy, was her idol. Fang Yu and Fang Yi joined the party. They found cards of their own and had Fang Zhao sign them. Big brother Zhao, did you compose the first 3 movements of the 100-year period of destruction series? Fang Yu asked. What do you think? Fang Zhao said. Haha, I have no idea. But you don't have to explain, Big brother Zhao. I read online about the confidentiality rules for virtual idol staffers. Fang Yu thought the mainstream press speculation was right. The credits Sci-fi Wing had revealed were a front. The real composer had yet to be unveiled. Who was it? Ming Kang had suggested it was just one person and not an entire team. The answer had to wait until the release of the 4th movement. Still, not everyone could be a front man. From the perspective of Fang Yu and his siblings, Fang Zhao was already a stud for being able to take credit as a producer, even if he was being used as cover. After Memorial Day, Fang Zhao spent another 3 days in Yanbi before returning to Qin. As the launch of the Rising Dragon online poll neared, Yanzhao's big 3 entertainment companies started jockeying for position. They rolled out their respective online ad campaigns. The entertainment media was caught up in a frenzy, as if journalists had been injected with amphetamine. Huangzhou. Rising Dragon headquarters. Online voting in the 5th continent has begun. Next up is Yanzhou. They have 3 candidates this year. Yanzhou is typically a 2-way race. That's because the 3rd member of the Big 3, Sci-fi Wing, never produces virtual idols, but they did this year. I think the idol was tailor-made for the race for the endorsement deal. Regardless of Sci-fi Wing's actual intentions, in terms of voting, an extra competitor means more news. This is good for us. The Rising Dragon editor in charge of the online poll called the publication's Yanzhou Bureau. Get ready to launch online voting in Yanzhou on February 8th. February 8th was also the release date for the last movement in the 100-year period of destruction series. On February 8th, in the early hours of the morning, the internet was abuzz. The 3 big entertainment companies had mobilized all their stars to campaign for votes. Polar Light, being the only successful virtual idol that Sci-fi Wing Media had produced, received the full backing of the entire company. Regardless of whether they were fresh newcomers or A-listers who had finally made it to the top, they all chipped in to campaign for votes. In all the years of Yanzhao's history, this was the first time on the virtual idol stage that all 3 big entertainment companies were having a public competition. However, there was a different group of people who were paying close attention to the new song releases at 8 a.m. At over 160 years old, Shui Jing did not follow his usual routine of heading to the garden downstairs for his morning stroll. Instead, he sat in his study and turned on his audio and projection systems as he waited for 8 a.m. to arrive. On his table was a paper notebook and a pen. He wanted to jot down his thoughts and analysis moments after he finished listening to the 4th movement. Compared to electronic recording methods, Shui Jing was more inclined toward manual records, as they had more feeling. Beside the table was a pile of books. Some were a compilation of Shui Jing's teaching materials, and some were books written by other people that he used as reference. Many people of the same profession felt that Shui Jing's mission to compile analysis and production guides for symphonic musical compositions was an unwise decision. This genre was too arrogant and unpopular. Talented people in this field tended to conceal themselves. Publicly writing them out would not amount to much, as they were viewed as specious nonsense. From past textbooks of symphonic music, some people who purchased the books would give a poor review after flipping through, and whoever compiled it would get a scolding. It was simply an arduous and unrewarding task. Yet every time Shui Jing heard this sort of talk, he would only smile. When people asked for names of other contributing composers, Shui Jing would only smile but not reply. As Shui Jing analyzed the 3 movements of the Period of Destruction series, the deeper he deleveled, the more apprehension and admiration he felt. He admired Fang Zhao's drive and ability and was astonished at his audacity and progress. In the 3 movements, many times there were unfashionable methods that had been neglected for years, but in those 3 movements, they perfectly fit in the movement and express the artistic concept. Just one more left, Shui Jing muttered. Actually, after hearing the first 2 movements, one could understand the intention and purpose of the creator. The third movement's theme was war and the fourth movement should be a conclusion. At the stroke of 8, Shui Jing turned on his audiovisual platform and adjusted his equipment, and the music video appeared clearly before him. The image displayed a somber scene at the crack of dawn. Continuing at the end of the third movement, the comprehensive fighting continued. However, the scene was not as bleak and gloomy. The essence of the music was not as urgent and restrictive as before. At the beginning of the fourth movement, an alternating rhythm appeared. Differing by a semitone, the two tones were the opposite, one dark and gloomy, one bright and upbeat. The sounds of a treble violin and double bass as different as heaven and earth created a vastness and made the imagery of the music distinct. The short brief notes portrayed the fierce wind at daybreak that chilled one to the bone. Every strand of hair on the body felt as it was feeling the flow of air. The tremor of a cello added to the emphasis as the killer intent emitted from this battle to survive made one shiver. The bodies of tree men who were on an all-out attack were splattered with mud. Every branch seemed to be oozing thick blood and killing intent as they carried their valiant selves forward in a reckless fashion, attacking every savage beast within their sights. These beasts that plundered their place in the world. A trombone and a woodwind score combined together alongside some muted whistles from a trumpet. The originally stiff tone became rough and bleak as the savage beasts became timid, cowering under the relentless counterattacks of the tree men. The brutal beasts that were unparalleled in slaughter became weak and exhausted as the cold wind of the morning screamed through and they trembled in fear. Unlike before, the strength of the woodwind tones was gradually accumulating. In the image, the tree men were pushing on as the sinister-looking beasts were put on the back foot and forced to retreat. In the midst of a rough-sounding brass whistle, the eerie and vicious beasts reached their final struggle, snarling and snapping, appearing fierce while they were actually cowardly at heart. A fist enveloped by a biting cold killing intent locked on to the front beast's heart area. Like a pike that had been grinded sharp, it pierced through without the slightest hesitation. The savage beast that had just been attacked flew through the air in an arc and landed in a nearby lake. The surface of the lake split apart as the beast landed in it, struggling for 2 seconds before sinking. On the surface of the lake, there were also some broken tree branches, scattered about messily. The figure took a look at the lake. A powerful string symphony started, carrying a sorrow that had been held for so long. Yet at the same time, the unceasing string symphony also brought a sense of tenacity and unyielding spirit. Compared to brass and percussion, string had a sort of gentleness, but it was not invariably gentle. Amidst the gentleness, it could be firm. The sorrow was no longer derived from them being weak but had transformed into a firm and explosive form. The figure in the image turned around and began running toward the hilltop facing him. As the figure ran up the hill, sparse wild grass swayed in the wind brought about by the figure's footsteps. Beast after beast was beaten and stomped on. The coordination between the tree men was seamless. This was the result of an understanding born by countless fights to the death. Step by step, they moved forward. Step by step, they climbed higher. When the figure finally reached the summit, in the midst of the combination between trombone and woodwind scores, the woodwind tones that had been gradually accumulating eventually exploded. The woodwind score separated by 3 octaves played, assembling a vast tone, describing the view from the summit of the hill, wide and extensive. The battlefield at the bottom was littered with corpses of both beasts and trees. Compared to the start, most of the silhouettes moving about on the ground were not the plundering beasts but the tree man's fellow comrades. Everywhere, in all directions, were the brave figures of comrades in combat. A bugle call signaled the harmony in full swing. The reverberating sound signified that this war was finally reaching its epilogue. The drumbeats were no longer that urgent, now raising one spirit. The beating of the timpani that people of the new era were familiar with was the foundation. A more primitive drumbeat combined. This was music from a different time and space fusing magically and perfectly. It seemed as if they had survived through an endless winter without any sunshine. When the figure on the summit raised his head, he watched as the clouds slowly parted and the golden beam of sunlight shone down from the heavens. The pair of bloodied fists that had just slayed countless beasts began to tremble nonstop. In his eyes, it was clear that he was moved after enduring silently for so long. His eyes were brimming with tears. The sunlight seemingly brought about a scorching warmness as it melted away all the coldness in them brought about by the war and touched the most gentle parts of their hearts. They had last seen this sort of sunlight a long time ago. It represented warmth and hope. They had been a group of ordinary creatures who had endured suffering on the land they stood on. They had experienced unimaginable hardships and despair. In their most dire of straits, they had made a stand in the frigid land and won themselves freedom and a new life, but what they wanted to win was a world. The turbulent feelings erupted as a rallying cry came from the summit of the hill. The majestic music matched up with a resounding male voice seemingly bringing about immeasurable strength, as if rallying the entire world. In the middle of the brass and string ensemble, an impassioned harmony signified the merriment of seeing the sunlight once again, celebrating this hard-fought victory. The drawing of the bow on a violin. As if the time had come for the world to recover and be reborn. The once muddy water of the lake became clear as the dithering clouds in the sky reflected off it. Broken branches and remains that were floating on the lake had all but sunk in. The previously sparse ground beside the lake was now covered with an exuberant underbrush. The tempo was vigorous and free from inhibitions as the drumbeats blended. Tree men both big and small ran around, stepping in the now lush grassland. There was no hint of urgency or tension, only joyous excitement. From today onward, those savage and bloodthirsty figures will never be seen again. From today onward, they need not worry about being homeless and running for their lives. From today onward, the world will become a new world. So, is it possible to rest yet? It is. In the vigorous harmony, the woodwind impetus was powerful and expansive. The string score was continuously rising. The forceful drum beats beat down. Combined together, it seemed like it was foretelling the scene that was about to unfold. The figure right at the front of the tree men stood up on a high slope, watching his idle and free comrades all around. Treading on the soft soil below, he let out a bright and relieved smile. Under the warm sunlight, he relaxed and extended both arms, his fists finally spread apart. His arms became branches stretching out in all directions. His legs became roots, penetrating deep into the soil and taking root. Seemingly reborn. The tree men all around, after finding a suitable place, spread out the fists and arms and took root. Under the sunlight, the bare branches sprouted out tender green leaves filled with the iridescence of life. Some exotic humming of a man was accompanied by electronic music as a brand new, rich, and diverse world unfolded. Sounds produced by different instruments of the string family played different roles. Like the departed spirits of those who had sacrificed themselves in the war were looking down from above on the new world. It also seemed like the quiet muttering of those who had never experienced this new life before and the complicated and excited voices of the tree men who had once again taken root. The corpses from the war were covered by dust and newly grown vegetation. That catastrophic war had destroyed many lives, but at the same time, it fostered a newly awakened life. The earth, full of opportunities, had freshness, yet it also had decay, but at least it was expanding in a proper direction. From above, looking down on the boundless land, the whole world had once more become tranquil and peaceful, as if the catastrophic calamity had never befallen. But beneath the peaceful appearance of this world were the tenacious souls who had survived this difficult time. What is eternal? How long is an eternity? No one knows. If another calamity happens, they will rise up once anew. Life goes on without stopping. War does not stop it. In the image, the scene zoomed through the land that already had flourishing forests. In the places where sunlight did not reach, there was no haze nor gloom. Only a bright and mystical sky full of stars. The harmony gradually quieted down. An elegant yet slightly rueful and distressed string score slowly became lighter. The deep and low male voice gradually dissipated in the midst of the strings. Words appeared on the screen. Lead character, Polar Light. Species, Longxing Tianluo. Song title, 100-Year Period of Destruction, 4th Movement, Eternal. Producer, Feng Zhao. Production team, Polar Light Project Team, Feng Zhao Zuwen, Song Miao, Pengkusan, Zhenghuang, Wan Yue, Fuyintian Stiller, Zhang Yu Rodney. A Sci-Leveler Wing Media Release. Shui Jing stared at the list of names on the screen, sighing and shaking his head. Partly in disbelief and partly glad that he had found a gem. Feng Zhao, that little fellow. Rocking his head, Shui Jing picked up a pen and wrote this in his notebook. Polar Light, from an ordinary peaceful creature all the way till he led the colony to counterattack, was an epic journey. Every melody in the movement brought about an intense realism and was stunning. As if the creator had actually experienced it for himself. When all 4 movements of the 100-Year Period of Destruction series had finally been completed and released, those specializing in music turned their focus to analyzing it. Yanzhou Music Association, widely regarded as the industry's most authoritative organization, had a post on their production, Voice of Yanzhou. On their homepage, Dina, a deputy head of the Music Association, had written an evaluation. Is it the pursuit of life or the pondering of the spirit? In the 100-Year Period of Destruction, the techniques included in the 4 epic movements have given rise to a new round of investigative probing. Shortly after, other professionals followed with their own analysis, explaining the golden points of the 4th movement in the 100-Year Period of Destruction. Today, where music is so commercialized, symphonic music welcomes yet another peak. Other than professionals involved with the industry, yet another group of people were also paying close attention to the music releases. The medical team set up to observe Ming Yi's condition had been waiting. From their point of view, the 4 movements constituted to an entire course of treatment. As soon as the 4th movement was released, they entered a busy stage. The whole virus was researched by the whole world and seemed to be a difficult problem. It had always seemed as if there was a door blocking the way of research. Now it was as if they had their hands on a set of complete keys to open the door. How much further they could step inside was all up to them. However, only music industry professionals and medical professionals were following this piece of news. The attention of the rest of the populace was online, following the highly discussed voting battle and other entertainment-related topics. Rising Dragon's branch in Yanzhou had set up the voting platform. Sci-Leveler Wing's Polar Light, Tongshan's Miyu, and Neon Culture's Andy Liu, these 3 popular idols were up for votes. Who is going to win the endorsement deal for Battle of the Century? Previously, some people had said that even if Sci-Leveler Wing Media produced a virtual idol this time, the competition would still be a 2-way battle between the virtual idol powerhouses Neon Culture and Tongshan True Entertainment. But looking at the numbers on the voting board, the distance between them was not that large. The gap might seem close, but just wait and see. In 2 days, there will be an obvious gap. Right now, all 3 big companies have mobilized their personalities to campaign for votes. In 2 days, when the buzz dies down, we will then be able to see the influence of each individual virtual idol. Polar Light relied on the 4 movements to get popular, but in terms of influence, he definitely is not as strong as the other 2, a reviewer from the media deduced. Whether it was Miyu or Andy Liu, both had been developing for 2 years already. 2 years accumulated to give rise to where they were now. As for Polar Light, whether it was his appearance or the debut appearance, it was somewhat a novelty and not in line with mainstream tastes. Polar Light's fan base is mainly made up of older people or those with enriching military experiences who would know how to appreciate this sort of music. Younger people will not like it. However, these remarks received a slap in their faces shortly after. At the voting platform, each candidate had a message board. Sci-Leveler Wing Media's operations team watched dumbfounded as the message board on the voting platform for Polar Light was continuously flooded with comments. "Did you employ fake fans?" one operations staff member asked another. "Nope. Weren't we supposed to gauge the situation first?" The operations staff member seated in front turned his head and said, "Secondary school students have a long memorial holiday. They are on vacation. It is just them having too much free time." At this moment, those watching the voting for the endorsement deal realized that from Sci-Leveler Wing Media's Polar Lights column came a flood of comments in a different style. "For the new world. For the Tree Men's glory. Tree Men have nothing to fear. The enemy is crafty, to actually call for backup. Stand firm, brothers. Second year of Kin No. 1 Secondary School leading troops to provide assistance. Kin No. 12 Secondary School contingent reporting. Yanxi No. 6 Secondary School contingent reporting. Fancy meeting a schoolmate here. Those behind, brothers from Yandong, Yan and Yanbi, hurry and catch up. Oh. I have enrolled, my imaginary branch fell off. Pick it up. Comrades, catch your imaginary branches." The masses observing the continuous rolling comments, speechless. "Every word is a drama," someone moaned. "Getting too engrossed in shows. To really think they are tree men covered in branches from head to toe. Why don't they say that their heads have started blooming?" Nevertheless, the bizarre style of comments continued. "Magoo City, follow me. Where is Jinging City's squadron? Soldier on, reinforcements will arrive at any time. Lizhou reinforcements reporting in." Speechless. Speechless. This comment that had just appeared not only made those who had been playing about happily stop, it also caught the attention of the observing masses, as well as the companies. Lizhou. Renault's Lizhou. How did people from Lizhou end up here? Originally, only a small number came from Lizhou to join the fun, but following that, more and more people from Lizhou appeared at the message boards. Which superstar celebrity of Sci-Leveler Wing Media managed to do this? Some tried to guess. But quickly, these thoughts were easily denied after thinking it through. An intercontinentally developed superstar celebrity would not enter the fray that easily. Participating in such an event would bring about much more influence, even to the point of completely controlling votes. An internationally recognized superstar would have taken a lot of time and effort to reach the top, and their company would not rashly play their card. Besides, the company's control over such superstars would not be strong. Whether the company said it was for employment relations or for collaborations, the company could not forcefully make such a request. Therefore, this kind of voting was normally limited to within the continent, and participating in campaigning were only the company's A-listers and those below. In terms of influence, there were limitations, and there was the blockade of foreign media too. Generally, people from other continents would not take part. But what was happening now? Why are there people from Lizhou? Neon Culture staff thus inquired with Rising Dragon's branch about such large-scale intercontinental campaigning. How was it not against the rules? Rising Dragon's Yanzhou branch said that the rules and regulations had never been restricted to the region. This round's Yanzhou voting platform also had no restrictions regarding voters from other continents. If one had the capability to garner votes across the world, Rising Dragon would approve with 2 thumbs up. This was a testament to one's popularity. In no time, everyone found out that, on Lizhou's side, it was wireless media that was campaigning for votes. The industry's media began to guess that Sci-Fi Wing Media and wireless media surely had some secret transactions. At the same time, Lizhou's wireless media had contacted Sci-Fi Wing, and they were discussing collaboration matters. It did not involve music. Wireless media was a film company. They still had no plans to disrupt Lizhou's music industry. The collaboration they had in mind was regarding a film arrangement. Zero's wireless media had started preparations for the next movie. However, Zero was not trying to flatter anyone. Rather, he wanted to curry favor for his great-grandfather. The third movement had gotten him an influential shortcut. Thus, Zero was serious now, spending a considerable sum to engage a well-known scriptwriter and director. He had decided to film a movie depicting exalted heroes of the war. Zero himself was going to be acting, and he was brushing up on his acting skills. At the same time, he instructed the company to contact Sci-Fi Wing Media regarding a collaboration. Sci-Fi Wing's Polar Light had only started a while back, right? Movies and films will surely come about, so why not collaborate with wireless media? Generally, Lizhou's film companies would use their local actors. Regardless whether they were real people or virtual idols, using actors from their own continent made it easier to receive the support of the viewing masses. After all, actors had their fan bases within their own continent, making it easier to garner box office sales. However, Zero's aim now was not to earn money but rather to win the favor of his great-grandfather. When the fourth movement came out, Zero used certain means to get the final movement of the 100-year period of destruction series and send it straight to his great-grandfather. To appear frequently before his great-grandfather would bring about many benefits. Nowadays, whatever pleased his great-grandfather, Zero would do. His great-grandfather did not mind people from foreign continents, so he would not either. It did not matter if he earned less or paid more as long as he was able to be in the good books of his great-grandfather, he would have achieved his purpose. Helping to campaign for votes was a show of wireless media's sincerity. Even when it got noisy outside, Feng Zhao paid no heed. He sat in his office writing down his composing thoughts as well as some techniques and feelings he used when composing. He had written some before, and today he would write down the remainder. As for others, he would decide when the time came. After finishing, he sent the electronic file to Shui Jing. Somewhere in Qin, Shui Jing was writing down his analysis of the fourth movement when he heard a notification and saw that he had received a file from Feng Zhao. After reading through it, Shui Jing just stood blankly on the spot. For the textbook he was compiling, Shui Jing wanted to discuss with Feng Zhao about his composing philosophy and sources of inspiration. He hoped that Feng Zhao could impart a little of his experience, allowing more people to come in contact with music of this style and learn a few techniques. How much Feng Zhao wanted to impart was all up to him. Xu Jing had never expected Feng Zhao to write so much. A textbook like this normally contained over 100,000 words, at most 200,000. The book would also contain various musical scores and analytical diagrams. Shui Jing had only planned to write about 100,000 words, touching more on newer topics that were never raised and briefly mentioning older topics. The file sent over by Feng Zhao contained 30,000 words. That was already a third of Shui Jing's estimated word limit. Moreover, it all contained Feng Zhao's production experiences as well as composing techniques. All that was written was not at all vague. Even though he had included ancient techniques, all his ancient and modern musical techniques were explained very thoroughly. When Shui Jing finished reading, he immediately contacted Feng Zhao. Feng Zhao, do you know the implication of what you have written? One could start a paid training class or accept a few disciples as a means of extra income. Lots of people in the industry did so. However, Feng Zhao had actually written all of his methods down. When this was all placed into a publicly available textbook, it would not bring Feng Zhao as much income. I know, Feng Zhao replied. Are there any problems with the content? There are no issues. I just wanted to ensure that you are really all right with compiling all this. Shui Jing asked once again. Whether to compile or not, the decision lies solely in your hands. Feng Zhao knew what Shui Jing meant. It was just that he had chosen to share his own experiences and techniques publicly. He did not know how long he would get to stay in this world. He was grateful for having the chance to once again open his eyes and see the world. During the end of days, he had thought that, if he had the chance, he wished to pass on every single one of his skills and techniques, if at all possible. Who would not want to live longer? This life was an unlikely accident. Not everyone would get a chance like this. He would use whatever experiences and techniques he had learned in his lifetime and leave them in a book that would be passed on to future generations. He hoped that this time, on his gravestone, the words "a composer" would be on it. Shui Jing sighed deeply upon receiving Feng Zhao's confirmation. I got it. Hanging up, Shui Jing remained silent for a while. He then removed Feng Zhao's name from the column for contributors and placed him in an empty column labeled Deputy Editor. On the other end, after the call with Shui Jing ended, Feng Zhao received yet another call from Duan Qianji. Come to the top floor office. Ming King wishes to thank you in person. Like and subscribe.